distinguished personalities from India and abroad with us today who will be deliberating on various topics which will hone your managerial and leadership skill. We shall begin day 2 with our first technical session on the topic Challenges and Opportunities on India's Investment Landscape. May I now invite Mr. Bibu Ponnuran, Senior Vice President and Chairman of the Annual Convention, Director, Medivision Group, to deliver the welcome address and opening remarks.
Good morning, everyone. The hall is not as full as it was yesterday, so I would like those sitting here to respond back with a good morning so that, we can get the morning going. Good morning. I hope you had a great evening yesterday. We had the great experience and learning to have listened to both the stalwarts, Mr. Deepak Parekh and Dr. Shashi Tharoor. I'm sure that all of you would agree that they were electrifying talks for us yesterday. The day ahead today is loaded with exciting talks and panel discussions by experts in their domain of competence. We also have the exciting story of the crisis in the desert from the upcoming movie Aadu Jeevitham or The God Life. The team is coming here along with their director, Blessy. You would also be seeing Mr. Najib, the real-life character on whose life this story was knitted up. And then we have the success stories of our Keralites who have done exceedingly well in different parts of the world. In fact, yesterday we have honored them, but you could hear their real stories today. You could hear it firsthand from the legends themselves. They have flown in from different parts of the world to be with us and engage in our conversations. I hope that's all learning for both us as businessmen, as corporate heads, and also for the students from the B schools. We have 5 keynote speakers and 2 important panel discussions, all led by experts in their own domains. I welcome you all to this great convention from morning till evening, and I request all of you to make the best of this convention, wishing you a day full of great learning and networking. KMA has tried its best to bring variety to this event and at the same time ensure that the core focus remains on discussing and deliberating on various management concepts, irrespective of the type of industry. By linking business beyond borders and management, the tone has been set for the years to come, and we sincerely hope that the outcomes would exceed expectations. We welcome once again all of you to this convention and wish you all the best. Thank you.
May I now invite Mr. Sandeep Sikka, Executive Director and CEO, Nippon Life India Asset Management Limited, who's our chief guest and keynote speaker for the day. Sir, I invite you to kindly come up on stage. If you want to invest and grow rich, he is your go-to man. Presently, the Executive Director and Chief Executive Officer of Nippon Life India Asset Management Company Limited, Mr. Sikka is one of the most respected asset managers in the country with about 25 years of professional experience. He has been the recipient of numerous awards, the Asian Business Leader 2018 by the Economic Times being one of the notable ones. I now hand over the mic to Mr. Sikka. Sir, the stage is all yours.
Good morning, everyone. And it's my pleasure and honor to be invited for this prestigious event. I'd like to congratulate KMA for organizing such a mega event where there's an exchange of knowledge and a platform where people who have knowledge and people, the youngsters sitting at the back, who will be the future of India, creating a platform for everyone to meet each other. For me, I should start, by Kerala is one place which I love, and you'll be surprised, out of the last 20 days, I've spent 7 days here, both for holiday and work. And for me, when I got this invitation, I think it was something, I said it's an honor, because when you meet a lot of youngsters and you have a lot of professionals who have done well, and yesterday we saw a lot of NRIs getting honored, I think there cannot be a better platform. The theme for this conference, Beyond Borders, is very interesting, and especially when it comes to capital markets. No business can be done without capital, and capital always goes beyond borders. You'll be surprised, many times we feel, how will we get capital to grow business? But capital always follows business. Capital always follows ideas. Capital always follows entrepreneurs. And it goes beyond borders. So I think I'd like to congratulate KMA for selecting a very good theme. Yesterday we had Mr. Parekh and Mr. Tharoor. They shared a lot of information, and I'd like to build on that. We are fortunate to be in India at this point of time. It's a matter of time we will be the third largest economy. And I'm sure each one of you, like me, is proud what we have achieved in last not only 75 years, especially in the last 10 years. However, every country is known for many things, but one thing, vibrant capital markets is the backbone for any country to grow. Kerala has been contributing a lot to the country, and we heard yesterday 20% of the inward remittances are coming from the state. And when we look at 20%, just to put things in perspective, this is more than the GDP of the 100th country in the world. It's also very encouraging to see Kerala becoming the hub of startups. As per the latest information I collected, there are more than 5,000 startups at this point of time which are nurturing in the state. And the Kerala has been recognized as one of the best states for startups. And why I'm trying to touch about startups, that's about India. It's about new ideas, new themes which are emerging, and this country is all about entrepreneurship, and we are seeing entrepreneurs coming from every small city and town. Also, when it comes to capital, many times in my introduction it was written that man to go for how to make money. I think many times it's not about money, it's also capital markets, our savings contribute to the growth of the country. Yesterday when I landed at Kochi airport, I think Kochi airport was one of the first ones, and which came as a partnership, public-private partnership. And for that, again, it was the capital which is helping the state grow. I will now like to touch on the key topic that I've been invited for. The challenges and opportunities in the investment landscape. Even if I was given one full day, I cannot cover that topic because it's such a big and intense, but I'll try to touch certain points on that. As I mentioned, India is today at a $3.7 trillion economy, and it's a matter of time we will be becoming the third largest. Per capita, we have 1,000 to 2,000. And any in the world, when the per capita income from 2,000 to 5,000, 10,000, it becomes a developed economy. And we are at a stage, and we have to all understand this, why it happens, and there is a direct bearing on this on the capital markets. All of us, many of us, in the last many years have been working on survival. A lot of things, most of the Indians in the last 75 years got education and got the basic things right. Once you move from $2,500 to $5,000, that's where basically disposable income comes, and the disposable income is used basically for further growth in the country. Once we get the disposable income, we also start saving more, we start investing more, and that is where it nurtures more vibrant capital markets. To touch certain aspects of capital markets, let me first start with equity markets. Our latest market cap is 373 trillion rupees, which makes us the fourth largest market by market cap valuations. We are just behind US, China, and Japan. And this is something we may not many times realize what is the importance of the market cap, but that allows a lot of foreign capital also come into India. Also, many a times, till about 5 years back, all of us would have heard when it comes to capital markets, it was always about foreigners. You'll be surprised and proud. While there are a lot of opportunities to invest, like I mentioned earlier, businesses, ideas, entrepreneurs. But the key challenge that we face is financial literacy is very low in India. A state where literacy is one of the highest in the country, I think still the financial literacy is low, and I feel that is an area where we need to work on. The other challenge that we face is when it comes to personal investments. Personal investments, the behavior of that is built over generations. From many times, what our grandfathers used to do, our parents used to do, that gets imbibed in the next generation. And while a lot of things are changing, still a lot of people keep investing in banks and gold. Behavior will change over a period of time. The other big challenge that we see in financial markets is the distribution. How to reach at the base of the pyramid. There is a financial literacy issue. The other challenge that we face is how to reach out, because the logistic cost is very high. The positive part is, with the digital wave that is happening in the country, three things: UPI, Aadhaar, and the Jan-Dhan, the JAM as it is called, has changed the way Indians invest. It will help us go deep into smaller cities and towns to ensure across the world play a very important role in development of a country. Today, there are two things, and this message is more important for a lot of established businessmen who are here, a lot of members of KMA who are building businesses. We are always looking for businesses where we can invest. But three themes remain common when we invest, and this is a message for all the entrepreneurs in this room and also the budding students. Young, there were more organizations like KMA who did something like this, because there's no substitute of exchange of ideas, and it cannot be a better platform where you learn from the experience of others. Thank you very much, and once again, thank you for inviting me.
Alumnium. I welcome you, sir, and request you to kindly come up onto the stage. Our next panelist is Advocate Joy Tatil Itu, Managing Partner, Kalidas Legal, India and Dubai. After graduating from the Government Law College, he did specialization in maritime law from the University of Southampton, UK. Thereafter, he enrolled as an advocate on the rolls of the Bar Council of Kerala in the year 1996 and started his career with the firm Messrs. Nagendran and Nagendran. He started his independent office, which was subsequently merged with Messrs. Kalidas in 2006 and became the managing partner of the firm. The firm started offices in Mumbai, Delhi and Chennai, and later, as part of strategic expansion program, the firm has started offices in Dubai and Singapore. He was appointed as a notary public by the Government of India in the year 2007, and he is also a guest faculty to many premier professional institutes in India and abroad for several branches of law. We also have Mr. Suresh S. Nair, General Manager, South Asia, Air Asia Group. A commercial aviation veteran of more than 30 years, Mr. Suresh Nair is presently the General Manager, South Asia for the Air Asia Group, handling India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh and Maldives. Having been in key position across multiple airlines that include Cathay Pacific, Jet, Virgin Atlantic, Delta and the erstwhile Paramount, he is highly experienced professional who has in-depth knowledge about all areas of the airline business. A lover of startup airlines with focus on low-cost ones, Suresh Nair is one of the regular speakers of Aviation Outlook held in different parts of the world. We welcome you, sir, and request you to kindly join us on stage. And to moderate the session, we have the distinguished Mr. Suhas IAS, Managing Director, Cochin International Airport Limited. Mr. Suhas is currently the MD of Cochin International Airport Limited and also the Roads and Bridges Development Corporation. He has served as the District Collector of Wayanad, Alleppey and Ernakulam and has brought about appreciated changes in handling public grievances to make access to the district administration offices easier and hassle-free. His initiative in meeting 10 tribal chiefs every month in Wayanad was received with wide appreciation. Credited with launching the concept of oxygen war rooms during the COVID phase, which later became an opening for the government of Kerala, he is an advocate of the use of technology to improve governance and work to integrate both of them to bring about prominent development. Welcome, sir, and I request you to kindly join us on stage to begin the panel discussion. Over to you, sir. We also request the participants to kindly be prepared for the Q&A session. We request you to kindly note it down in a piece of paper. Our volunteers will collect it from you after the session. Thank you. Sir, over to you.
Is it audible? Thank you so much. A very good morning to everyone here. August gathering. Then we have esteemed panelists, fellow panelists, office bearers of KMA. It's an honor to be here along with the established personalities here on this stage to talk about travel and logistics. Mainly our focus would be on logistics because they have been working in that particular sector. And we would also talk on air cargo because we have with us Mr. Suresh Nair, who is the General Manager of South Asia, Air Asia. Then we are going to talk about logistics. We have Mr. Shahab Al-Jasami, Vice President of DP World, UAE. He's also going to talk about cargo movement in ports. Then, with respect to the legal aspects, we have with us one of esteemed advocates, Advocate Joy, who is from Calidus Legal. Before we start, let me just...
economical sectors and for how to take over or overcome these challenges, I think there will be always ways to overcome these problems, and supply chain will never stop.
Thank you, sir. So, next question to you is to you. Now that Mr. Shah has talked about how dynamic the cargo industry is, so my question to you is, what is the significant legal impediments affecting cargo movement and processing across the world?
Thank you very much, sir, for the opportunity given. At the very outset, I must confess that maritime law, shipping laws, logistics laws in India is still an infant stage. Whatever said and done, we are still an infant stage. It could be because of many reasons. I don't want to say that the legal system in India is not that competent enough to handle maritime law. I don't want to say that. If I say that, that will amount to contempt of court also. So rather, I would say that we never had an opportunity to handle substantial matters of importance. So to develop any branch of law, we need to have matters of substantial importance. If you look at any constitutional provisions, if you look at any criminal law, if you look at any intellectual property law, we have matters of substantial importance and we handle the same. Whereas, as far as shipping laws are concerned, as far as maritime laws are concerned, we never had an opportunity. It is because just one reason. If you look at the bill of lading, I'm just giving an example. If you look at any bill of lading to any major shipping line, Maersk, APL, CMA CGM, any bill of lading, if you see, the dispute resolution forum is either in London Maritime Arbitration Association or in Singapore. And therefore, India, we never had an opportunity to deal with matters of substantial importance. Of course, we handle cargo claims. Our lower judicial system handle many cargo claims. We have admiralty jurisdictions. We have admiralty courts. We have a very codified systematic admiralty act as well. But the fact remains, unless and until if you get an opportunity to handle matters of substantial importance, this branch of law will never develop. So that is why I don't want to be known as the maritime lawyer in Kochi, honestly. Because if you...
To the connecting Cochin and Kerala to the Asia Pacific region other than more than AirAsia. As far as air cargo is concerned, I mean, especially when 80% of the cargo from Kerala is perishable commodities, it is critical for air connectivity to be there for air cargo connectivity. Each aircraft, A320 for instance, has got about 2 to 4 tons of cargo space on every flight. The 777s and the A330s have a much more capacity, up to about 15 to 20 tons per flight. And this is the air cargo connectivity that is crucial for the air cargo movement to many of these countries. AirAsia, for instance, connects. Pre-COVID, we were operating 3 flights a day to Cochin, from KL, and 1 flight a day from Bangkok to Cochin. And all these flights could connect to almost about 127 destinations as far as Honolulu, Sydney, Auckland, and all over South Asian points, Southeast Asian points, all over Far East, and every ton of cargo which was boarded from here could reach the furthest point with a one-stop over in Kuala Lumpur or Bangkok. And that is to do with passenger traffic also. We connected 127 destinations ex-Cochin all over Southeast Asia, Far East, and up to Auckland, Sydney, Melbourne, Australian points out of Cochin. We started the operations into Cochin in 2009, and we were the first carrier to operate to Southeast Asia from Cochin. We really opened up. Cochin is a comparatively small town compared to the metros. And we were the first carrier to look at Cochin. Places like Trichy, Vizag, Bhubaneswar, Jaipur, Amritsar, all the small towns in India, connecting all over ASEAN. Places like Brunei, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, you name it, we had it.
And handle about 1 lakh metric tons of import cargo. Soon we will be coming up with a new exclusive export cargo terminal as well. And all this are, as we all know, mainly we deal with perishables, so all this will be temperature controlled and perishable handling terminal. As on today, we are handling about 80 tons. So let us move on. This is to Shahab, sir. Sir, you head Dubai ports, so you look after Dubai ports. And one of the main attractions of Cochin, I must say one of the landmarks of Cochin, is our Vallapada terminal, which is also Dubai port. And
Behavior, attitude of people in Dubai, that was a key reason for us in Dubai and UAE to be leading the development of our nation in that part of the world. I have traveled different parts of the world, and it is not always the same case in which you see.
They would not have been able to survive had they not built a good quality control systems. Organizations which either have weak control systems in place or have good control systems but ineffectively managed, those organizations have all fallen by the side. This topic is fairly relevant today in the current context for a reason that many of us have the tendency of associating internal controls with compliance. Please don't get me wrong, all of you are from industry, all of you are entrepreneurs, and many of you are senior professional managers. But I am speaking from my experience of over 3 decades, part of it in industry, part of it as a practicing chartered accountant, having audited organizations of different sizes and different sectors. My experience has been that most cases, people tend to look internal controls as a compliance requirement. There's a requirement under law. It became mandatory more specifically in the Companies Act 2013. So there is huge tendency to look at it as a checkbox item. Whereas the organizations where I have been actively engaged or currently engaged and where I find them effective, all of them have made internal controls as part of a multidisciplinary function predominantly led by the business organization. Organizations who have a tendency of assigning internal controls to the finance function, my experience is that over time, finance function, because of their inherent DNA, they will start seeing it as compliance function just to get through the audit requirements, the multiple audits which are there. If you want to achieve the goal of controls to be beyond compliance, it's extremely important that as entrepreneurs, as senior professional managers, it should be a function which should be owned by multiple disciplines and more specifically run by the business organization. When it comes to controls, equally important to acknowledge that when you try to design a control or implement a control or act based on a control, it is binary. It's a 0-1 game. You cannot have shades of gray there. So Any control which is implemented, you either comply or non-compliance. There is nothing called partial compliance. The moment there is a partial compliance or a culture of saying that there is partial compliance, it means you are non-compliant. So it's very important that as business leaders, internal control should be seen as binary, as 0 or 1. Let me make it a little simple, particularly considering that there is a good student audience at the back as well. Most often than not, business leaders in their hunt for growth, in their hunt for scaling, in their hunt for profitability, more often than not, either knowingly or unknowingly, tend by their actions to violate some of the controls which are meant to function effectively. When it comes to controls, what is very important to appreciate that these controls are like brakes in a car. They're like brakes in a car. When you have effective brakes in your vehicle, you are able to drive faster. Vehicles which have good braking systems, your confidence to drive faster is high. So it's very important that if you have an aspiration for high growth, you should have such high quality braking systems. If your braking systems are weak, you should not aspire for a high quality growth. Let me give another simple example to connect with importance of control systems. Think of the expressway infrastructure, the 8-lane roads, 6-lane roads which are there. And if you look at your experience of driving on an expressway, when you drive with lane discipline, there are lanes for high speed, lane for a medium speed, lane for a slow speed vehicle, and lane for a two-wheeler as well. As long as you drive in the respective lanes and at the speed limits which are designated, you will reach the destination on time and without any accidents. But the moment the discipline is lost of a high-speed vehicle coming in a low-speed lane just because you want to overtake, or vice versa, they will all lead to accidents which can be fatal. The same is extremely true for internal controls as well. Internal controls are meant to encourage organizations to function in a disciplined manner, which help both achieving the goals on time, and also to avoid any casualties in the process of achieving your goal. That's the objective of a good internal control system. Now, for an internal control system to be effective and successful, it's also equally important to have a business perspective which is long-term. I've seen organizations compromise on the effectiveness or efficacy of control systems because they at times tend to get dictated or dominated by a short-term thinking. The moment you have a short-term thinking, objective of achieving a target within X or Y period, those cases, your entire focus is on the short-term goal, no matter what you do. Whereas it's very important that as business leaders, all the control systems which are designed, the organization right across should be made to realize that these control systems are meant to achieve objective in the long term. In the short term, there will always be misses. There will always be misses. So when you build a business for a long term, a 5-year period, 10-year period, 20 years period, and my own experience, having seen entrepreneurs over the last 30 years, almost all entrepreneurs build businesses for long term. There are very few who actually build business with an objective of selling it off within 3 years or 5 years. Even in those cases, they try to build a business in 3 to 5 years, which the buyer can actually have a long-term perspective. So it's always driven by a long-term perspective. So what's important is, in the short term, even if you have periods where the business goes through a bad phase, business ends up with a loss, it's important to recognize that we accept that shortfall, that shortcoming, rather than try to violate the control systems. Because the moment you start making deviations on the control system, it's cancer, and it spreads across and it's difficult to stop it. So one violation, it's almost like one fag, one smoke, and then it's difficult to stop. There's nothing like a partial smoker. You are either a smoker or non-smoker. There's nothing called partial. Partial is your own definition of 1, 2, 3, whatever it is. The same applies to a control system as well. So if control systems are to be effective for organizations to have a very effective leadership, it's important that you should have a long-term vision with reference to the controls which you are designing for the organization. I happen to be on the boards of a few companies, and amongst all, my first 8-9 years of experience at Sundaram Finance, where I started my career as a company secretary at the age of 22. That 8-9 years of experience at the board of Sundaram Finance gave me exposure to a world where even today, I still don't come across organizations which have the quality of leadership. Please note, I started saying that leadership by itself means being ethical. The quality of leadership and doing activities of controls and complying with regulations. I found Sundaram Finance far ahead of the governance regulations which exist even today. I'm talking about 25 years back. The practices which were there in Sundaram Finance, they were far ahead of what is defined today, whether it is under the Companies Act or under SEBI guidelines or be it under SEC in the US listed companies. Now, I'll just share from my experience a few examples of how these controls tend to be effective. And when I was young, for me it was an eye-opener. Coming from a finance background, the general DNA is to ensure that you control everything. You just try to put a rigid process or control on everything. That's how I initially got inducted into my career. But at Sundaram Finance, it was a complete eye-opener for me. There are 3 criteria which they had in terms of controls. One was, any control to be effective and to contribute to leadership, the control needs to be simple. It should be a simple control. It should not be complex, which people will find it difficult to understand. Any control system you design, everybody should be able to understand in simple terms. That was criteria number 1. The second important criteria was how easy it is to comply with the control in a consistent manner. You should always define business controls with reference to whether it is your sales process, procurement process, or whatever process. The controls which you design should be such that somebody can comply it with ease in a consistent manner. The third important criteria for controls to be effective for contributing for leadership was that you should be able to monitor the functioning of the controls easily. Only if these 3 criteria are there, the controls pass the test for putting it into the system. I'll just give you some examples. Maybe they're a little dated, but still I have that experience. I'll just give a few of these examples. I'm not too sure how many of you would know Mr. T.S. Santanam, late Sri T.S. Santanam. He was one of the children of Mr. T.V. Sundaram Iyengar. It's a large family, and the entire Sundaram Finance family and the clan comes out of Mr. Santanam. When I joined that organization, Mr. Santanam would have been more as an observer. The chairman was an independent chairman who was the former defense secretary and former chairman of as an observer in the board meetings. And I, as a company secretary, young kid sitting somewhere in the corner in that boardroom which had 9 directors. One of the instances was an observation which came from an internal audit, that when it comes to under income tax law, up to 15,000 rupees, if you submit bills and claim it, it is non-taxable. And above 15,000, taxable, etc. was there. And for most of the employees, the actual medical requirement was 3,000 rupees, 4,000 rupees. And there was at least 8, 10, 12,000 rupees which was not claimed. And that 8, 10, 12,000 rupees was not paid, or it was getting subjected to tax. So most employees those days, some of you are senior people, you would recall, used to have this habit of buying toiletries, soaps, toothpaste, etc. from a medical shop. You buy those from a medical shop. I see a few people nodding their head. So buy those from a medical shop and get a medical bill and submit it. So as internal auditors, you can figure out that these bills are not genuine bills because they are not syncing with the medical history of that particular family members. So it came up to the board, and there's huge amount of discussion that there were X number of employees submitting false bills, and we should take action on them. They are not proper. Lots of discussion, almost 45-50 minutes of discussion. And almost and then Mr. Santanam, who comes as an observer, he stepped in and said, when you recruited the employee, did you include the medical relevance as part of the CTC? Did you include it? The answer is yes. He said that money belongs to the employee. When it belongs to the employee, if he has claimed only 3,000 rupees by submitting genuine bills, you are obligated to pay the balance 12,000 rupees without asking for any of the bills. He said, rather than try to develop controls on in the behavior of people which can affect the organization later, he intervened and said, look, whatever genuine bills, reimburse as it is. Rest of it, end of the year, it has to get credited to the employee's account. No questions asked. It was not the practice. One example of how controls need to be put simple. I'll give another example again of this. 22-23, you are getting shaped by thinking of people of this quality. In Sundaram Finance, which has a huge branch net, can be deputy manager grade, can be an assistant general manager grade, doesn't matter. The moment you are a branch manager, you are entitled to a car. Branch managers can use the car for work as well as for personal purposes. So again, in one of those audit part, an observation comes saying that some of the branches we come across people are misusing it. So they designed monthly only so much petrol bill. For example, those days we had a lot of people coming from State Bank working in Sundaram Finance. So in State Bank, they had a control of 40 liters per month. So they said we should restrict it to 40 liters per month, etc., etc. Solid 1 hour discussion, and people came with all kinds of suggestions. We had to control, we had to restrict, all of that stuff. And this gentleman, at the end of all of it, and great observer, at the end of it, he says that, look, this person has joined our company. He's working for our 55 days for our company, and he uses the vehicle entirely for company work. You are supervising the work which he is doing. If once a month, if he is taking the same vehicle 2 days to take his family and come back afresh and again work for us, what is the problem which all of you have? What is the problem which all of you have? Why do you want to put this control of 40 liters and all that stuff? If you put this control, the leakage will happen elsewhere. Leakage will happen elsewhere. And after that, pin drop silence. And the post experience has been that the people have only been more productive. People feel it's my own car, my own company, and consequently the quality of usage. Had we tried to put a control system, 40 liters, where all you went to show morning, evening readings and all, what do you do with all those things? You are not implementing an effective control system. And those are learnings. So when it comes to control systems, if the intent is to achieve leadership within the organization, leadership of the organization in the industry, it's very important that any control system you design and implement, whether it is for sales function, a procurement function, a HR function, no matter what it is, it has to necessarily pass through these 3 criteria of easy to understand, easy to comply with in a consistent manner, and more importantly, easily monitorable as well. And there's one other very interesting thing which I want to share from a control perspective. This is again an example in the context of that organization. So Sundaram Finance used to give this hire purchase, leasing, 3-year financing, 5-year financing. And these are all financing which is done not for people who have credit rating of AAA, AA+, AA and all. They're not done for those people. And only now we have all the CIBIL score, etc. But those were period where none of those existed. So when it comes to credit, you are actually giving credit to a set of people who don't have access to the banking system, who don't have access to organized source of financing. So the model used to be that I will give a hire purchase financing, I'll give a lease financing at an IRR of, let's say, 14%, at an IRR of 14%. But in the promptly on the due dates, without any follow-up, what is called as a 2% prompt payment rebate. Finance became 14, became 12%. But 2% was the rebate given. 0 efforts for collection, 0 follow-up needs to be done. And the logic of Mr. Santaram was, if somebody had paid you money on time, he may not have a credit rating from CRISIL or ICRA or CARE, but his behavior has been exactly the same as a AAA customer. So you need to give him the credit, give him the recognition, give him the status of a AAA customer and honor him. So he said the business model, the process, the control process should be such that it should encourage good behavior, reward good behavior. And this 2% prompt payment rebate used to be paid. No efforts on collection, etc., except the delinquent accounts. Rest of it was pretty good. So that's how business models are built to achieve leadership of the company in the industry. That's how controls are meant to be. Now, I'll just probably give a couple of other points which as takeaways for an organization to use controls beyond compliance and to achieve leadership. One is within the organization, setting the stage for ethical conduct of people across the company. And for that, maybe a very old cliche, but tone at the top is extremely important, extremely important. Many of us, particularly working professionals, have all started our career right from the bottom, and we have seen. And if you look at the behavior of people at the bottom of the pyramid, behavior of people at the middle of the pyramid, those behaviors are invariably influenced by the behavior of the people at the top. If somebody has flown in directly into the top, he may not have experience of this, but the behavior of people at the bottom of the pyramid of the organization and middle is heavily influenced by the tone at the top. If at the top there is no commitment to adherence to control systems, if at the top the management deviates the control systems often, then you can be very sure that without your own knowledge, there are many leakages happening within the company. So it's very important to ensure that there is the tone at the top. I'll give you an example here. There are business leaders here. There are senior professional managers here. Normally at the leadership level, when we go on customer engagements, when we go and do customer conversations, there is a tendency where, because I am at the helm of the organization, I tend to commit certain things which the rest of the organization does not commit. I myself violate the delegation of authority within an organization. The moment at the top, the person violates the delegation for violation as well, and consequently, the controls are not. The second important need is empowering ethical decision making within the organization. Towards that, good whistleblowing practices. And my experience is, I have still not seen whistleblowing being effective. Every organization I am there is a whistleblowing policy. We go through a procedural process of, have we got any calls in the calling system or mails where there are whistleblowings? But I have not come across people actually blowing the whistle. And my thought is, we have not built that culture within the organization, encouraging people to blow the whistle. More often than not, when you blow a whistle, it could be possible that 9 of the 10 times, the whistle might have been blown wrongly. So the organizations have a tendency of punishing the people who have blown the whistle wrongly. Because of that attitude, the genuine situation also, people stop blowing the whistle. So it's very important that you should build a culture where people are open to blow the whistle and they are not penalized for wrongly blowing the whistle. You penalize for somebody who is correctly blown the whistle, that is also happening. Leave that aside. But there are many where we come across saying that he is wrongly done it, you snub him, you put him in the watch list, etc. You try to push him into a different role, etc. Those are things which are very common, which should not be done. And again, around empowering organization for the leadership to be very effective and ethical and use the control systems in a meaningful manner. It's very important that some of the basics, and I've seen this, private enterprises in particular, they are the biggest violators of this. I find PSU organizations very effective. Private sector is very ineffective on this. 2 basic things. 1, rotation of jobs. Second is segregation of duties with maker-checker. Invariably in public sector, you will find that People are rotated from one function to another function to another function, one location to another location, once in 3 years, 5 years and all. But in private sector, it's very, very common that the same person is attached to a function for 10 years, to a function for 15 years, to a function for 55 years. The moment you have people attached to a single location, single place, single function, you can be more or less sure that the controls will get diluted. The second important thing is segregation of duties with maker-checker concept. And here again, many private sectors are victims and have failed because they realize importance of maker-checker and the importance of segregation of duties, but they rarely achieve the same. So these are some thoughts I thought I'll share with you and leave it here. Wish I could spend more time and interact with you, maybe sometime in future. Thank you all for your patient listening. But while I conclude, I just want to leave a very important message in the context of controls and leadership. Very personal to me, very personal thought of mine. You can agree to disagree with me, and I'll very respectfully accept it. But I'm sharing this out of what I see day to day in life. One, we have all moved to a society of I, me, myself. So if you look at organizations, every individual in the organization thinks about himself. He can't even think about his family. And in today's society, maybe Kerala is a little bit of an exception still. People have moved from joint families to nuclear families to mini nuclear families, partitioned families, marriage to live-ins and all, where you have individuals who struggle to be accountable to the spouse. They struggle to be accountable to their parents. Having those individuals at your workplace, somebody cannot be accountable to spouse, cannot be accountable to parent. You expect him to be accountable to the organization. Look at how effective your control systems have to be to manage an organization with those kind of people. The third point I would like you to keep in mind is the big disease which is there currently in the society called depression. For various reasons, you will very commonly come across people who go through periods of low, because detached from families, relationships, etc. You will find every who will actually be going through that phase. And that person is a weak link of that team and that organization. You need to keep this in mind while developing the control systems, implementing them in achieving the objective of leadership for the organization. Thank you all, and thanks to Bala and the KMA leadership for the opportunity to present here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your valuable advice. We request you to kindly stay back on the stage. Being a company secretary myself, I for one am surely very thrilled to hear from you. And Head Credits of Indal Money to kindly come on dais to hand over a small memento on behalf of KMA. I also invite President of KMA, Mr. A. Balakrishnan, to join Mr. Sri Kumar on the dais. Our third session for today is on the topic cross-border transaction. Thank you so much. We now begin the third session for today. The international edition of the annual convention offers topics truly versatile, embracing diverse perspectives in our collective journey towards transcending global geographical limitations and fostering exceptional managerial excellence. May I invite Mr. Mohan Murthy, former Managing Director, Reliance Europe, Supervisory Board of Innoplexus AG Germany, to the dais for the keynote address on the topic cross-border transaction. In a professional career spanning close to 50 years, Mr. Murthy has over 40 years' experience in international work, largely based in Europe. Initially nominated by the Ministry of Commerce, Government of India, as India's representative to the United Nations Investment Promotion Services in Paris and Zurich, he was a Director Europe of CII in Cologne, Germany. For 20 years from the year 2004, he held the position of Managing Director Europe of the Reliance industry. He has been a frequent guest lecturer at the European Management Schools and an op-ed columnist. His areas of expertise include India and EU markets, entry strategies, M&A transactions, joint venture, legal contract negotiations, and the list goes on. We are honored to have you with us today, sir. The stage is all yours.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, delighted to be in Cochin. I belong to Cochin, grew up here, did my schooling here, and then I went out for education, higher education. Cochin city itself, I'm talking of 50 years ago, 55 years ago, was very different from what it is today. It's today a really bustling metropolis, and each time I come to India, I notice the changes that are happening, very positive changes. My special thanks to the president of KMA and the committee for inviting me here, and also especially to Mr. Manoj Krishnan, who asked me to be here, especially asked me to be here. He almost threatened me that if I don't be here, I'll have to face consequences. So here I am. Before I start, truly delighted to hear from him about Sundaram Finance, because me and my family bought shares of Sundaram Finance several years ago at 12 rupees a share. Today the shares are worth almost 4,000 rupees. And that definitely says a lot about the ethical behavior, the corporate ethical behavior of Sundaram Finance. Thank you very much for that outstanding presentation. I would now like to start the topic. The topic given is cross-border transactions. It's a very broad topic, and I almost have 20 minutes. In the outset, I'd like to talk about change. I talked about the changes that Cochin city itself has undergone. India is undergoing tremendous changes. The world as a whole is in the midst of, shall I say, disruptive and chaotic changes. And sometimes it's worrying, sometimes it is very positive, it does a lot of good for the citizens of this world. But it also kind of keeps our mind in a very restless and, shall I say, in a state of flux. In this kind of scenario, the kind of changes that are happening are mind-boggling. For instance, the life of a company 60 years ago was 60 to 100 years. Today, the life of a company is reduced to 20 years. And If they don't perform, they are out. Shareholders have information, and they keep a close watch on companies, and if companies don't perform, they are out of the market. Companies also who don't transform with the changing needs of the society, the technologies that are new technologies that are appearing, and if companies do not adapt to these new technologies, then they have a problem. Similarly, the life of a CEO is reduced today. From a lifelong employment in the old days, today the life of a CEO, average life of a CEO is reduced to 1 to 2 years sometimes. I'm talking with the worst case scenarios. So everybody needs to be on their toes in this world which is changing in a rapid manner. Unstoppable changes are happening. 4 years ago, I attend this World Economic Forum in Davos each year. And the 2020 World Economic Forum in January 2020 was as normal. There were discussions, workshops, and, the heads of state and CEOs from across the world were brainstorming. None of them realized that within 2 months of the World Economic Forum of 2020, the world would come to a total stop because of the COVID situation that we faced. Unprecedented. It was like almost fighting a world war. And that has brought about tremendous amount of changes, disruptive changes in many cases, to the entire world. But the good news is that we are all adapting to these changes very quickly, except a few countries which I can assure you will face the consequences. And I'll come to that later. The next thing I want to talk about is the future that we see today is also in a big state of flux. And in this state of flux, what we see is that several nations are on the verge of, shall I say, even perishing. Let me give you a quick glimpse in a flash of lightning of the global economic scenario. Let's start with the US, the North American continent. USA is a ray of hope. The country is economically as always doing very well. But in North America, the Canadians have kind of set themselves into a free kind of a spar with India, and they're facing the consequences, and they will be the losers. So the North American continent is good, but Canada is an exception. If you go to South America, many of the South American countries are in a state of flux. They have always been political turmoil, uncertainty in terms of economic growth. But there are some countries which are doing well. So I will not, with a kind of a blanket say that all of them are bad. Let's go to the African continent. There are some distinguished members here who have also spoken before me on the African continent. There are some countries in Africa which are growing double-digit, but there are others who are also not growing at all. And overall, the African continent is still faced with a lot of problems in terms of political turmoil and uncertainty. If you look at the South Asian continent, then India is a ray of hope. China, although it has geopolitical problems, is still probably going to bounce back. However, ladies and gentlemen, China is an aging society, and a do you know, ladies and gentlemen, that in the last 10 years, China has been the largest importer of robos? The reason being they have an aging population. And in my view, the Chinese may soon, from a manufacturing economy, become a services economy. It looks to me very clear. If you look at Japan, again an aging society, and again my prediction is that Japan will move from manufacturing into services economy. Take Russia. We all know what is happening there. They have sanctions against them, and the ruble is bouncing up and down. We don't know what will happen. Internally, they have problems within the country. Time will tell, where they go. So that was a glimpse of the entire world in a flash of lightning, as I said. In this, the ray of hope is really India. Let me turn to Europe. And I have lived and worked in Europe for over 40 years. The continent as a whole, until the Ukraine war started, was doing fine. The war started, and today you have the engine of Europe, which is Germany, facing huge amount of problems, recession, inflation, and there's a flight of investments from Germany, out of Germany, to other countries, to Eastern Europe, and also to Asia, including India. So here's an opportunity for India. And incidentally, Germany is also an aging population, and they have huge problems. Probably this will be seen by the world in the next 15 to 20 years, when they will not be able to pay back the pensions to the aged because they don't have the money. And that's why they are importing, a lot of migrants to come and work. But with the import of migrants, the demography or the demographic profile of Germany and Europe itself is changing. And we will see what happens in the future, but there is a lot of uncertainty in Europe itself. With the demographic profile changing, the continent is also faced today, I'm talking about the European continent, is faced today with a far right, extreme far right kind of a mindset. And this is kind of being openly talked about, and the far right is also gaining a lot of room and seats in the parliament, not only the European Parliament, but also the individual state parliaments. Holland, Netherlands is an example, a clear example, where far right has really kind of won. The attitude today is each one for himself, not only in Europe, but almost most of the world. And I see a kind of de-globalization that is happening as we speak, because protectionism amongst nations is increasing. Tips to do cross-border transactions, and with my experience of Europe, I'd like to stick to Europe. Many of you here are very senior managers, more senior than me, more experienced than I am, and I'd like to humbly request them to pardon me if I have said something wrong. And for the students who are attending, please don't take me too serious. This is from my experience, but you should also go out and experience for your own. But I'm just here to share my thoughts. The first is about the the difference between an Indian and, shall I say, the Western mindset, especially European. The European mindset is such that the head rules the heart, whereas the Indian mindset is where the heart rules the head. Indians are full of emotions, and even sometimes, Mr. Vijay Kumar mentioned this in the case of Sundaram Finance, where Mr. Santanam, T.S. Santanam, the great doyen of the TVS group, emotions catches on, and he took decisions based on emotions, which were good for the company also. I'm not saying it was wrong, but emotion-based, but good for the company. Whereas the European mindset is no emotions. They are ruthless when it comes to decision-making. So please understand that the German or the European mindset is that the head rules and not the heart. The second is, and is very important, is the conception of or perception of time. In the European sense, or even the Western sense, time is a straight line. It is linear. The time that has gone by is time lost forever. We believe in birth, death, and rebirth. So what we cannot do in this life, we can always do in the next life. So our concept of time is very different. And whereas if you are doing cross-border transactions, remember that time is precious in the European or the Western mindset. Kal means yesterday, it also means tomorrow. So that is our broad sense, time sense. And whereas in Europe, punctuality is respected and is demanded in whatever you do. And therefore, please remember this, especially the students who are the future managers of this world. The next point I'd like to mention is Europeans are very forthright, abrupt, sometimes even rude. You may find them rude, in a sense, when they are asked a question or they have to take a decision. As I said, the head rules the heart. Whereas in the Indian sense, we find it very difficult to say no. That word no does not exist in the Indian dictionary. And we only say, I will try, okay, we will see, etc. And a person says that, you can rest assured it will not happen. It means a no. But that word no will not come. And this is a great difference. So in terms of communication, it is very important to be direct, sincere, truthful, and say whether you can do it or can't do it. Because this thing of wavering in between, I will try, we will see, etc., will not work in the Western mindset. Communication, again, re-emphasizing on what I said earlier. The European says what he means, whereas an Indian may not always say what he means or means what he says. So this is a very, very clear distinction. And what is respected in the Western cultures is say what you mean and don't give vague answers to anything. The next point I'd like to say is about the fact that Indians, we all know that, manage well in chaos. You see the way our traffic moves, and now, of course, it is changing because we have highways, we have lanes, which Mr. Vijay Kumar again mentioned. Penalties, we don't follow the lanes, so that is happening. But For a German or a European, when they see the Indian traffic, not necessarily in the autobahns, but I'm talking of within town, or even kind of profile of a nation, you can judge the profile of a nation by the way the traffic moves. So many Germans who come here, they come back totally aghast and flabbergasted the way the traffic moves. They also understand that in all the chaos that Indian traffic has, there is also a method. And we have fewer accidents in the Indian roads than in probably the European roads. The next point I'd like to mention is about the education system in Europe. European education emphasizes teamwork, whereas Indian education, unfortunately, and I have been through this, emphasizes on individual achievement and rewards individual achievement, which is not the case in Europe. You don't have a ranking system, you don't award children who have performed well, etc. It is a kind of a very subtle way to say that you have to work as teams. And even in the classwork, in universities and schools, teamwork is encouraged. And that reflects in the society that they have built. So remember this, if you tie up with a European company, teamwork is encouraged. Now that I have mentioned all this and time is limited, I'll just mention a few points about Europe itself. If you plan, I'm sure there are companies here who already have acquired companies from Europe or who have collaborations or joint ventures, etc. So you have experience, but this is for people who do not have the experience. 40 years ago when I went to Europe is not the same Europe of today. That was a different Europe. Today it's a very different Europe. I mentioned a few points earlier about the attitudes, mindset. The mindset of the European is today rapidly changed. The work cultures have changed. I'm talking of Germany, where I live. On Friday, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the German would say, schönes Wochenende. That means have a good weekend. They stop their work at 2 in the afternoon or 3 in the afternoon. And on Monday, half a day, the first half of the day is spent on discussing what was the weekend like. So, in terms of work culture, the Germans are very different than the Europeans also. They do not carry work to home. Work ends in the office, and they have their personal space at home. They will not pick up your telephone calls when you call them on weekends. So, the entire mindset has changed, and the European sense of work is based on, is very contractual. It is not ownership based. Whereas the Indian who even goes to Europe or who works in India, selfless, sense of ownership, works on weekends, etc. In Europe, you're not allowed to work on weekends. In fact, many companies discourage Indians working in Europe not to come to office for work during weekends. So carrying work home is a very, very unknown kind of a thing in Europe now. And the sense of ownership, therefore, is not there. It is very contractual. This is something you must remember when you do cross-border transactions, especially in Europe. And it's not a pleasant experience. We ourselves, as a company, Reliance, we are the largest successful company of, one of the largest successful companies of India. We acquired a few companies in Europe, and I was running it, and we had tremendous problems in Europe. There was a huge cultural mismatch, and it was very difficult. So I must warn you that if you're planning on acquisitions, this is going to be a problem. However, the Mittelstand of Germany, for instance, or the medium-sized companies of Germany and Europe, which are the backbone of Europe, of European industry, these are companies who have fantastic technologies, state-of-the-art, technologies. Many of them are family owned, and many of them are also for sale or are wanting investments into their companies. So please look out. This is a good time because valuations are low in Europe, the company valuations. It's a good time to take over or to acquire technologies, state-of-the-art technologies, and which can help to transform themselves into high-tech companies. So these are some of the points that I thought I'll mention, and I will conclude by saying that the story, believe it or not, but the German went to hell, to explore hell. And in hell, he noticed that there were long queues for the Indian hell. And the queues for the German hell, the American hell, and all the other hells were very, very short. So he was wondering where to join, whether it's the long queue or the short queue. Asked one of the persons standing in the Indian queue, why is the queue so long and what is different here? So this guy standing in the queue responded and said, well, in the Indian queue, there are three things that happen. You go in, the German queue, what happens is, when you go in, there is the devil, which will give you 100 lashes, put you on a bed of nails, and then put you on an electric chair, and everything works very well. Whereas in the Indian queue, the devil comes, punches his card, and goes home. The bed of nails, the nails are not there. And the electric chair, there is no power. So the Indian queue is the best queue. And so the German decided to join the Indian queue. I tell this to Europeans and Germans and say that despite all the negatives, perceived negatives, many of them are very false, which Europeans have about India. They are not properly updated about the things that are happening in India. That they should go to India and experience India and do business in India because this is a dynamic and a bouncing economy. So we also are seeing a lot of European companies and Western companies pouring in money into India. Of course, there are other nations also, smaller nations like Vietnam, which attracts a lot of investments. But India is also a major hub for European investments. So this is going to be an exciting journey for India, and this is also a good time to shake hands with the Western world in terms of technology acquisition. I'd like to end here, and I'm open to questions if there are any. Thank you.
Thank you for your valuable tips on cross-border transaction and sharing your experience. Well, hell doesn't look that bad for Indians. Now, I'm happy to know that, sir. We have one question for you from the audience. It is from Avinash Ashok. Having delved into your insightful article on Palakkad 2050 a couple of years ago, where you envisioned at 95 in Kalpati with the assistance of a robot nurse and navigating dynamic interplay between the logic of dimag and emotion, dil or dimag. What influenced more in your journey?
Can you repeat that last sentence again?
Dil or dimag, what influenced you more in your journey?
In legal terms, is it?
Dil, mind or emotion?
Okay. Well, I would say it should be a balance between the head and the heart. There has to be a balance because you cannot have, let me give you an example. I went to a restaurant in Düsseldorf. This happened just before I came here. I was invited to a lunch, a business lunch. And I had told them that I'm vegetarian, so they invited me to a kind of a vegetarian restaurant. a vegan restaurant. And I asked for a particular dish which I preferred, and which was on the menu, but in two different dishes. I wanted a combination of those two. The waiter said, "Nein, nicht möglich." So you're sitting there for lunch, you're invited, and it's an embarrassment when you ask for a simple thing where it is already there, but just a combination of two dishes to make it one. Rice and vegetables instead of rice with something else and vegetables with something else. He said, "No, not possible." So that is the kind of rigid mindset that they have, the Europeans and Germans. It might annoy you sometimes, but I have got used to it. 40 years living there, you get used to all this. My first trip was in Paris, my first experience. I was just 26 and a half or 27 years old. I was posted in Paris in the United Nations. I had a series of meetings the first week itself, and I had gone to meet the French Manufacturers Association, Secretary General of the French Manufacturers Association. I went into his office. I had with me the director of UNIDO with me. He introduced me. The Frenchman was sitting there. He exchanged greetings, all that. We were talking. The Frenchman was sipping coffee. He did not offer us anything. Then I went back, perplexed and a bit confused. And I asked the director of UNIDO, how is it that he doesn't even offer? Isn't it rude? Because I come from a country where we are very warm and hospitable people. He said, the director of UNIDO said, "In France, you have to demand. You want a coffee, you can ask him for a coffee. He will make a coffee for you. But he will assume that you don't need coffee, and that's why he's sipping his coffee." So it is a cultural thing which we will not understand unless you experience it. You have to experience this. The other example I can give you is, again in France, we were helping a company in Madras, Chennai now, a medium-sized company, to tie up a joint venture with a French company, a medium-sized family-owned company. And this was again a high-tech at that time, gauges for measuring, sensitive frequency gauges. And it was a joint venture discussion. Huge discussions took place for a month. And then the final discussions, the Indian company had the CEO and his CFO, and the big team was there. I was there, and then the French company, for the first time, the CEO of the French company also joined, the family owner of the company, and the team was there. Discussions going on. Suddenly, the Indian CFO asked, "Can we see your financial statement?" The French CEO was annoyed. He stood up and walked out. And he sent a message to his team that we do not want this joint venture. Later I understood, because I was part of the Indian negotiating team, we understood that in France, you don't ask a family-owned company for financial statements. It's a closely held secret. And it is an insult to ask this. So these are just few examples of the hundreds of other examples I can give you later. Maybe I'll write a book on this to indicate that there are very subtle and sometimes glaring, differences in our cultural understanding. And this can cause a lot of problems in your cross-border transactions. Thank you. I assume there are no more questions.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
I invite Mr. Saji Varghese, Deputy General Manager, Resources, Muthoot Finance, to come over to the dais to hand over a memento to our valuable speaker. I also request Mr. A. Balakrishnan, President KMA, and Mr. Bibu Ponnuran, Convention Chair, to join on stage with Mr. Saji Varghese. Thank you so much. Next up, we have a very interesting session which I'm sure will keep you all glued to your seat and leave you spellbound. One of the most highly anticipated Malayalam films of 2024, Plessi's Aadu Jeevitham, is gearing up for a worldwide release on April 10, 2024. An adaptation of the 2008 hit Malayalam novel with the same title, written by Benny Amin, Aadu Jeevitham is a survival adventure based on a true story. As we are all eagerly waiting for the release of this magnum opus, the team of Aadu Jeevitham traveled down the memory lane to recollect the challenges they faced to bring out this epic movie to us. We will deliberate on crisis management in the desert, the true story of Aadu Jeevitham. For this panel discussion, we have with us the renowned film director, Mr. Blessy Thomas. He is one of the most acclaimed screenwriters and film directors in Malayalam who has won 1 national and 6 state awards and is known to have given films making a new look. His documentary film, 100 Years of Chrysostom, 2018, received the Guinness World Record for the longest documentary in the world, with a runtime of 48 hours and 10 minutes. His filmography has 8 movies where he is the writer and director, and the 9th one is the much anticipated Aadu Jeevitham, to be released in 2024. He has also acted in 2 films. We welcome you, sir. Request you to kindly join us on the dais. We also have Mr. Epen Casey, Associate Producer of Aadu Jeevitham. Hotelier and film producer rolled into one. Casey Epen is in the limelight as the Associate Producer of Aadu Jeevitham, the much anticipated Blessy movie with Prithviraj Sukumaran in the lead. He is one of the directors of Crown Plaza Kochi, a luxury business hotel. Welcome, sir. We also have with us Mr. Robin George Matthew, who is the Chief Associate Director of Aadu Jeevitham. We welcome you onto the dais. We have Mr. Sanal Kumar, CMD Classic Fashion Apparels. He's a known face to us. He's been kind enough to join us the convention right from day one. For the benefit of the new participant, I'll give you a very brief into his profile. Sanal Kumar is the founding chairman and MD of the Classic Fashion Apparel Industry Limited, which contract manufactures for Walmart and many other companies in the Europe and the US. With a head count of about 32,000 people and 22 factories, is producing about 5.5 lakhs garments per day. It is the largest apparel manufacturer in the MENA region and contribute about 45% of Jordan's total garment export. Welcome, sir. I now hand over it to Mr. Epen Casey to kick off the panel discussions. Welcome, sir. I now hand over it to Mr. Epen Casey to kick off the panel discussions.
Good afternoon to all. First of all, let me thank the KMA for inviting us to share our experience in Jordan during the COVID days.
Vipul Punjaran, who is also my classmate, has compelled me
to come and share the experience. Naturally, I had to pull our director, Mr. Blessy, my good friend Chetan Sanlayton, and our Chief Associate Director, Mr. Robin George. Aadu Jeevitham, you have heard about it. It's the most well-read, most published novel ever in the history of Malayalam. I think it has crossed 250 editions, and the 251 first edition is coming as a special edition.
The film news. This Adijividam project was initially, Blessy had this dream of making this
into a movie in 2009. So it's almost 15 years. So after the initial discussion, there were some issues here and there, and finally decided to produce. He has scouted, that is, recce was done, looking for the locations in 12 countries, and finalized that desert is very famous for this sky watching.
This world's famous place. Then he wanted to shoot in Algeria, the Sahara Desert.
The Sahara Desert. It is 3 times the size of India. If you are inside Sahara Desert, it's like you are in the midst of an ocean. That is the depth of Sahara Desert. So having scouted all these places, as I said, he has finalized these 2.
He has an unimaginable patience and determination.
And uncompromising attitude in the making of this film. He is very stubborn. He will never allow anything which he doesn't like. Such a
man, as I said, who will never compromise for anything than what he is dreaming.
Recently, you have heard about Anubhav Kher saying, when we announced the release of the film, he said he was so unhappy that he was not in the film. And he has credited Blessy for
the best directors in the world. I am so proud being associated with Mr.
And the crew of this Adijividam in all the departments was from 14 countries, starting from India, Pakistan, Jordan, Muscat, Dubai, Syria, Lebanon, Abu Dhabi, Algeria, Sudan, France, USA, Turkey, and Nigeria. So such a vast crew from all these countries were there. And we have spent around 184 days in Algeria altogether. Regarding the crisis, you know, the major crisis like war, flood, or earthquake, we can have a standard practice of managing the crisis. But COVID, you all know, nobody knew what it's it, how to take precautions, nothing. We were all blank. It was totally unforeseen, unexpected for the whole world. Be a emperor, king, prime minister, president, whoever it is, they were all terrified by COVID. Nobody knew what to do, what decision to be taken. As you all know, one fine day we all got the news from Wuhan, some COVID, some disease, which we named it as COVID. What is COVID? Nobody knew. Doctors doesn't know. Scientists doesn't know. So nothing was anybody's in mind. What decision? What precaution? Nothing. No medicines. So, and also you know the spreading of COVID was like a storm. I think by around 7 days, the whole world was infected with the COVID. And you have seen the videos from China. All were fearing. I know many people who are inside the rooms for months, inside the house for years, almost a year. And regarding our film crew, before that I will tell you, we were planning to travel in 2020 February. My daughter's marriage was fixed and the engagement was on January 26. I was also planning to travel, but after fixing the marriage, I thought I will better concentrate on my daughter's marriage because the marriage was fixed on May 24. So telling Mr. Blessy that I'm not coming, he will get angry. So I told my executive producer, financial controller, that I will be there arranging everything and I will see off you in the airport. So they slowly told Mr. Blessy that Ipan sir will not come. Oh, he got so angry. If Ipan is not going, I'm not going. So more than that, we have a special bonding. After the first schedule of 2019, facing the earlier crisis, normal crisis, we have a special bond. We share our sorrows, we share our pains, we pray together, and by God's grace, 2019 schedule was completed. So he told me nothing doing. If you are not coming, I'm not going. So, I said, okay. So telling my family members, that was another difficult part. Fixing my daughter's marriage, and I'm saying that I'm going for shooting. But ഭാര്യ പറയും നമ്മുടെ മോളല്ലേ. So it was very difficult to take a final decision. But my both daughters were very strong. Appa, you go for the shooting and come back. So finally, we all boarded the flight on 14th February night, landed there in 15th February morning. The old Jordan Amman airport crew was frightened that a big team from India has come there for shooting, and during this COVID. They didn't allow us to come out. So there were discussions, recommendations. Mr. Sana Kumar's team, our counterpart in Jordan, all were putting pressure here and there. And after around 4 hours, 5 hours, we were released from the airport and we went to Wadi Ram, which was 450 kilometers from the Amman airport. We were in Wadi Ram Desert, which is Aqaba province of Jordan. And Mr. Prithviraj Sukumaran has traveled to Vivamayer in Austria, which is a world-famous clinic for this body weight reduction and body skin tuning. So as you know, by the time the flights were getting restricted, travels were becoming difficult, but somehow he also managed to land there on 15th morning. The 3-4 members who traveled to Jordan by 16th morning, they were not allowed to join us. They were quarantined. So they were not able to attend, come to our Wadi Ram shooting location. And by the time COVID, within a few days, COVID was getting worse. But as we were in the desert, we started the shooting. Slowly we were taking one after another, schedule was carrying on. In between, we had a Hollywood actor. His name is Ishaya Washington. He was paid his first installment. He also agreed to fly to Jordan, but he demanded for the second scheduled payment, but in the last moment, he didn't travel. So that was also a big blow for us because the schedule plan was having a lot of scenes with this Hollywood actor. But we were helpless. The COVID scenarios were getting worse. And then after 7-8 days, we had a major accident. One of the Jordan person who was driving a desert buggy had an accident. So the news spread all across and even it reached the king's office. So there was a strict ban for our schedule. We were all asked to sit at the Wadi Ram resort where we were camping. So we didn't know what to do. Then we have reached many people. Then we reached Mr. Sanal Kumar also. He, with his good office and with his good contacts, reached to many ministers and prime ministers and king's office. But still, getting permission again to shoot was becoming very, very difficult. Weeks, 1 week, second week, nothing was happening. So we were all worried. Every day, we will discuss what to do. And in between, the team members were also having a real big problem. I will come to it later. Then Mr. Sanal Kumar, who was staying 450 kilometers from our place, Wadi Ram. So, to comfort us, he will travel 450 kilometers to meet us with food, without a pass. That point of time, nobody was allowed to travel. Nobody could travel without a pass. Applying for a pass will take 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So that was out of question. But this man, without a pass, took a risk and came to meet us, and he was there with us, comforting us. That was a big psychological support for us. We were all comforted. He said, he's having a big team of 32,000 members. So he said, Ipan, don't worry, adding 60, 70 members to my team is not a problem. You are safe with me. So that comfort, that confidence was one of the survival thing we had. That is one of the crises we faced, and he managed that our psychological issue, like the fear. You know, in the desert, thinking of if we are in a shortage of water, there is nothing, unless only the sand was there. Here in India, we can go to some place, get some water, some wastewater also we can get. There only sand is available. Then food, we will have grass here. If nothing is available, we can look for grass or some vadela or some ela. There only sand is available. So that fear was also there. Under much pressure, they have stored some provisions, but always that fear was there. If there is some interruption of supply of food and water, what we will do? That was all fear. Many times, even the senior crew members will come to us, give me a ticket, I will go back. You know the fact. No flights are flying, no permission is there. So one after another, there was issues. So finally, every day, myself and Mr. Blessy will discuss പരാതികളും സങ്കടങ്ങളും പരസ്പരം പറഞ്ഞ് പ്രാർത്ഥിച്ചുമൊക്കെ ഞങ്ങളുടെ ഫിയറിനെ പറ്റി മാറ്റാനൊക്കെ നോക്കും. ലാസ്റ്റിൽ ഞങ്ങൾ എവറി ഡേ ഗുഡ് നൈറ്റൊക്കെ പറയും. അപ്പം ഞാൻ ഇറങ്ങാൻ നേരത്ത് ബ്ലസ്സാറിനോട് പറയും, ബ്ലസ്സാറെ ഞാൻ ഇറങ്ങുക, ആ ഡോർ അടച്ചേക്ക്. ബ്ലസ്സാർ പറയും, ഡോറൊന്നും അടയ്ക്കണ്ടാടോ, രാവിലെ ചവിട്ടിപ്പൊളിക്കേണ്ടി വരല്ലേ. ഞാൻ റൂമിൽ പോയാൽ എനിക്ക് ഉറക്കം വരത്തില്ല. രാവിലെ 5 മണിക്ക് ഞാൻ ചാടി എഴുന്നേക്കും, എന്നിട്ട് ഡോറൊക്കെ തുറന്നിടും. അപ്പം ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് കോഫി കൊണ്ടുവരുന്ന പയ്യനുണ്ട്, അവനൊരു 5:30 ആകുമ്പോഴത്തേക്ക് ഇങ്ങനെ നടന്ന് വന്ന്, സാറേ കോഫിയാണോ ടീ ആണോ ചോദിക്കും. അപ്പം ഞാൻ പറയും, നീ പോയി ബ്ലസ്സാറിനെ കണ്ട് ചോദിക്കാൻ പറയും. സോ യു വിൽ ഗോ ടു ബ്ലസ്സി സർ ആൻഡ് കം ബാക്ക്. സോ തിരിച്ചു വരുമ്പം എന്നോട് ചോദിക്കും, സാറേ കോഫിയോ ടീ? അപ്പം ഞാൻ ചോദിക്കും, ബ്ലസ്സാർ എന്ത് പറഞ്ഞു? ഓ ബ്ലസ്സാർ കോഫി പറഞ്ഞു. അപ്പോൾ എനിക്കും കോഫി. സോ അപ്പോഴാണ് എൻ്റെ പൾസ് നോർമലാകുന്നത്. സോ അത്രയ്ക്ക് ഫിയർ ആയിരുന്നു ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് എല്ലാവർക്കും ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നത്. പിന്നെ ഈ ദ സപ്ലൈ ചെയിൻ മെക്കാനിക്സ് അതൊക്കെ ദേ വെർ ഓൾ റിഫ്യൂസിങ് ടു കം ബിക്കോസ് പോലീസ് വെർ സ്ട്രിക്റ്റ്, പാസ് വാസ് ഡിഫിക്കൾട്ട് ടു ഗെറ്റ്, മെഷീൻ പാർട്സ് അങ്ങനെയൊക്കെയുള്ള കാര്യങ്ങൾ കിട്ടാൻ ഭയങ്കര ഡിഫിക്കൾട്ടായിരുന്നു. മെഡിക്കൽ ഡോക്ടേഴ്സ് ഹെൽപ്പ് കിട്ടാൻ ഭയങ്കര പാടായിരുന്നു. ഈ പല ആൾക്കാരും ലോക്കൽ ഉള്ള ആൾക്കാർ ദേ വെർ ഫൈൻഡിങ് ഡിഫിക്കൾട്ട് or fearing to come to us. Then there was frequent disturbance of power. So living without power, AC, in the desert, you can imagine. Then apart from that, the fear factor, as I told you, the news from all over the world, medias, that was adding to this fear. So that crisis we managed by buying a football. We all were asked to play football. Then our art team made cricket bat and ball because cricket was not known in Jordan. So our art team made this cricket bat, cricket ball. So all were pushed to play so that they will avoid or they will have no time to watch the news. Every news is fearful. Some videos will, as you know, walking on the way, you will fall down, you will sick and die on the spot. We were fearing whether we will be able to come back to our country. We were fearing if we come back to country, the family members will be there. And there were some families where a newborn child was there. Then there were accidents in the family. So the members there were fearing how they will get the medical help. Fathers, father-in-laws, mother-in-laws, children falling sick. That's all was adding to the fear. So, but in spite of that, we celebrated Good Friday, we celebrated Easter, we celebrated Vishu. So the main fear factor was the biggest crisis. So by pushing all the team to engage themselves in football, cricket, cards playing, chess, they were distracted from this COVID news. And that is how we have overcome the major crisis of fear. I think now I will ask Mr. Robin to share some of his experience.
Thank you, Ipam sir. I think Ipam sir has covered most of our journey in Jordan. So I think I'll just make it really short and just talk about my experience personally. So basically, I work as the Chief Associate Director to Mr. Blessy. So my role in this film is to schedule the film and also to make sure we have our whole crew there and film as per the schedule. So as Ipam sir said, it's been a long time now, so there were many schedules after that as well. So forget a lot of things, but vaguely remember we shot for around 25 days or so, and we have another 35 days. We were just chilling there and trying to figure out our issues, which we had a lot of issues. To begin with, my challenge was to I've scheduled the film and I don't have any actors on set. So that is the biggest challenge one can have when you just have, we have many actors on set and that's how we schedule the film. But when you land on set, you don't have any actors there. You just have Prithviraj with us. And so that's when we again decided to just shoot his part as well. Now that's where I think the whole subject of crisis management begins for us, where we meticulously decided and rescheduled the whole part of that schedule just with Prithviraj, our actor. And the rest we decided to do it later on if we get an opportunity to visit again. To begin with, in Jordan during COVID times, the most troubling part for us was we didn't know what COVID was when we were there because we had no clue. We were out in the desert completely isolated. We don't have much information. So initially we didn't know how bad COVID would be. So we had trouble trying to digest the fact that there is a lockdown, you are not supposed to do this, you're not supposed to do this, and there's a lot of rules and regulations. But later on at some stage, I think we realized that, this is a fact and we need to live with it. So my whole job was to have our entire crew to be, to hold together the entire crew, because our entire crew was from different places, from all over the place across India, from different cultures and different backgrounds. So it was very important to have them, together, hold together, because everyone had their own issues, because everyone get depressed and stuff. As one of the speaker had said, there's always depression which creeps in everywhere with isolated minds, I suppose. So therefore, because we were stuck there, there was depression creeping in, and everyone had their own issues and stuff. For me, what worked for me was have a personal one-to-one conversation with these people, just to know what their issues and to make sure that they were all fine. We had a great, we had such a wonderful crew, even though they annoyed us a lot of times, but at the end of the day, they were very sweet and good people. So life became more easier. I'm sure, Blessy sir will take us through more situations and stuff, what happened to us. But, for me, what I felt, even for COVID, which made us more resilient and made us more stronger, was because from the beginning of this film, we always had challenges. Our path was never smooth. So we always had to go through stuff which, there was always challenges thrown to us. So it was very difficult. So I think those experiences made us a little more stronger to tackle the whole COVID stuff. So I personally also feel that such challenges and such situations makes one strong, and that's where a leader is born. And I'm really fortunate that I had to, got this opportunity to work with Blessy sir, Prithviraj, the finest actor. I don't think any other actor would spend so much time and energy and twice to lose weight for this film. I also want to, thank Sanal sir, who came in like an angel to us there, because we were really in a bad situation. Communication was, is a key for all this, to get out of all the COVID situations. And I think Sanal sir was of great help, and even right through years sitting with us, that shows the amount of love and support he is sharing with us. And also I feel COVID also made us stronger, and also COVID also made us bond like a family, I suppose. I think even before COVID we had a schedule, but I think after COVID is when we all bonded together. We spent more time, we got to know each other more well. And I just want to conclude by saying that our film, Adijivitham, which is Goat Life in the other languages as well, we had put this line, like a tagline, with saying the greatest survival adventure ever. I think we had that line as well. We experienced that line because our travel, our journey was also the greatest survival adventure. We have all kinds of adventure. We had all kinds of survival. And also, there's another tagline in the film which says, every breath is a battle. I think it's just not for Najib, the protagonist in the film, but it's also for us. Every breath was indeed a battle. And I'm glad that I got to be part of this team. And I think COVID also somehow made sure that we are sitting on this stage. Otherwise, if there's no COVID, there wouldn't be us here, I suppose. So something to talk about, even crisis management. Thank you all. Have a great day.
I should add something also. So our first schedule was in 2019. And that time only we met Mr. Sanal Kumar. Then one Mr. Joby, a UN Deputy Secretary, was there. He supported us a lot. Then for the second schedule in 2020, when the COVID started, so when we had to stop the shooting, we wanted to continue by getting a permission. So every day we will discuss and think of some plan. Then every day Mr. Blasi will tell me to reach to Mr. Sanal Kumar. So I was a little fearing because I Sanal sir said, why didn't you tell me earlier? He was so glad to help us. Finally, for everything he was there. One fine day, he came, one evening we were having dinner, myself, Blasi, Prithviraj and DOP and all. When Mr. Prithviraj, he went to the room. He was suffering. From 97 kilogram, he has reduced his weight to 67 kilogram. And you know, his diet was unimaginably less. Survival, for me, thinking like of that quantity, it is difficult. So when he said to take him out for a ride, I was thinking, how can I do that? I was telling Mr. Blasi, oh, what is this? How can we do that? Then Mr. Blasi told me that, try something, contact the ambassador office. I tried that. And finally, I couldn't get hold of any ambassador office people. Then I reached to Mr. Sanal Kumar. He said, okay, you go for a ride. Any problem, call me. But after 10 minutes, he called me back. Venda. Vellorum pidichagathita. Ningal evidaanennu ariyanokkathillalo. So better I will come. Next day morning, he came there by around 10:30, 11 o'clock. Two other colleagues, he introduced us colleagues, was also there. So in two vehicles. So we started to the Aqaba main city. So myself, my DOP, his two other colleagues were there. In the next car, Mr. Sanal Kumar, Mr. Blasi and Raju was following us. So when we reached the first police station, they stopped the car, checked. Seeing the person sitting next to the colleague who was driving, the police people started saluting him. So I asked the person who was driving, who's this person? Oh, sir, he is the ex-governor. Oh, I thought, survival will not be. So I put my collars. Then the next checkpost was by the military checkpost. That is a big checkpost. Even the locals fear to cross this military checkpost. There, all the soldiers came and saluted him. Oh, so I was so confident that we are in safe hands. Then, reaching at Aqaba, he made a 5-star deluxe hotel open for us. Then afternoon, the governor and the police chief came and had lunch with us. The same day, he has hosted a big dinner for all the crew. So, after that also, his hands was there always to support us. So finally, I started calling him Marubhumile Malagha. So Marubhumile Malagha at a help karanam. We were surviving, we could complete the shooting, and he is a man so down to earth, so helpful. And finally, as Robin said, that made us more closer, like family members. Then thereafter, when I call him Sanal sir, he said, no Sanal sir. If you want, you call me Sanal or Sanaletan. So Sanal sir has become Sanaletan, and we all has become a family. Over to Mr. Sanal Kumar.
Dear friends, the subject given is crisis management, and Epan has already explained what the crisis they got in, and Crisis will always come in. It all depends on how you approach the crisis, and if you approach it right by putting your heart and mind onto it. The person who was talking earlier was talking about a balance between the heart and the mind while taking the decisions. That is exactly what is required, in any kind of situations, in any kind of management. When, as Evan said, or Blessy called me, I was also into another crisis. Crisis in the sense, on 18th of March 2020, Jordan declared shutdown. For me, with all these people, by the time sun rises and sun sets, I have to figure out 750. So if the country shut down, there is no way that I can do anything onto it. So with the connectivity I do have, the country immediately created a crisis management committee. It's headed by nobody else. Anything and everything. So I approached the committee saying that I need to run my factory. If I don't do it, after 10 days, my loss will be $7.5 million and you will bury me alive. So they said to me, Sanal, we do have all, feelings for you, and we feel pity for the situations, but we can't help it because country's security, country's, well-being is more important than whatever you're talking to. Then my approach was, if I run my show, and that is not going to make any difference in the risk factor of the country, can't you allow me to do it? They asked me how. So we, as Classic Fashion, we set a very, very stringent protocol to manage this particular crisis or the pandemic. And we prepared that even before the country shut down, because the moment the 2019 Wuhan virus got into Italy in February 2020 itself, we knew that it is going to hit us. So we decided to work ahead to see how we are going. It's going to come in for certain. And those days, if you look at it, everybody thought we are all going to die. Who is going to die first? That's all. So the thing is, we prepared a protocol to see that how we can protect our operations. So we have a combination of migrant workers from India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and Nepal predominantly, and we have Jordanians, around 6,000 people on that 32,000 people composition. So 6,000 Jordanians, we can do nothing about it because they're all coming from the family. They do have connectivity, so they can definitely bring virus into the company. So first step was to telling the Jordanians, please don't come from today. You can sit at home and we will take care of you. And then what we did is, for the migrants, we decided that we are going to create a bubble, keep a from the community, and luckily none of us got infected by COVID. So as long as we can keep and what are the things to be done, we made a very, very stringent protocol for it. So I took that protocol and went to the crisis management committee and I said, this is my protocol. Tell me where I am adding an additional, Finally, they gave me an approval saying that as long as you maintain this protocol, you can start the factory. So 18th of March 2020, they shut down. On 2nd of April, I could start the factory. And when I started, other factories and other enterprises went into the crisis management committee asking for permission. So the protocol that I made became the Bible and said to all these people, as long as you can follow the protocol, you are allowed to operate. That is how our sector in particular got back into operations in April, though the country was shut down till July. And then to talk about Blessy's situation, it was the same. I mean, the approach was the same because when I approached the crisis management committee, they said there is no way that we can allow. My question was, they're in a desert. They're not connected to anybody. If they're not connected to anybody and they don't have COVID, why you want to stop them? And why you want to just, say that no to it? So it took a couple of days, but eventually we got the approval. And after getting the approval is the story what Ipan was narrating about it. So what we need to understand from all these things is, crisis will keep coming in. There is no way that we can stop it. Any external thing is beyond us. But once it comes in, if we approach in the right way, by applying our mind and heart onto it, and not ready to drop the ball, that is what I always tell my team. Once you hold the ball, you have no right to drop it. If you think that you cannot hold it for long, don't touch it. But if you take it and hold it, eventually you will always figure out a way to move forward and win. And that is in our daily life, that is in our business life, that is in our family life, and that is what it is. At the end of the day, that is a message that I thought I should share with you as on the other side of the fence than the Aadu Jeevitham, but I am absolutely connected to because of this particular event. With this event, helped me to connect all these great people, and that is where it stands. Thank you.
Manjusha, please play that video. We have a video made during the Corona days.
Sure, sir, but the audience are very eager to hear from Blessy sir first.
എനിക്ക് പറയാനുള്ളതൊക്കെ എനിക്ക് മുമ്പേ ഇവർ സംസാരിച്ചു. എൻ്റെ ഡോക്യുമെൻ്ററിയും നിങ്ങളോട് സംസാരിച്ചു എന്ന് ഞാൻ വിശ്വസിക്കുകയാണ്. ക്രൈസിസ്, പ്രതിസന്ധി എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് മുൻകൂട്ടി കാണാവുന്നതുണ്ട്, കാണാൻ പറ്റാത്തതുണ്ട്. ചിലതിനെ നമുക്ക് തരണം ചെയ്യാവുന്നതുണ്ട്, ചിലത് അനുഭവിച്ച് തീർക്കാവുന്നതുണ്ട്. എന്നെ സംബന്ധിച്ചിടത്തോളം ഈ സിനിമയുടെ ആടുജീവിതം എന്ന സിനിമ ചിത്രീകരിക്കുന്നതിനെക്കുറിച്ച് ചിന്തിച്ച് തുടങ്ങിയ അന്ന് മുതൽ ചെറുതും വലുതുമായ ഇത്തരം ക്രൈസിസ് കടന്നു പോയതുകൊണ്ട് തന്നെ ഞാനിത് കണ്ടപ്പോൾ പെട്ടെന്ന് ആലോചിക്കുകയായിരുന്നു. അവിടെ ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് ഭക്ഷണത്തിന് ബുദ്ധിമുട്ടുണ്ടായിരുന്നില്ല. പെട്ടെന്ന് എല്ലാം ലോക്ക്ഡൗൺ ആയപ്പോൾ ആദ്യം ചിന്തിച്ചത് എത്ര കുപ്പി വെള്ളമുണ്ടെന്നായിരുന്നു. കാരണം ഡെസേർട്ടിൽ ഈ 10-80 പേർക്ക് കുടിക്കുവാനുള്ള വെള്ളമുണ്ടോ എന്നുള്ളത്. അപ്പം ആദ്യം നമ്മൾ ചിന്തിക്കുന്നത് നമ്മുടെ ആഹാരത്തിനെ കുറിച്ചാണ്. അപ്പോൾ ഇവിടെ ഈപ്പൻ സാറ് പറഞ്ഞു ഫുഡുമായിട്ട് ഇപ്പം കുറേ നാളുകളായിട്ട് കേരളത്തിൽ നിന്നും ഇന്ത്യയിൽ നിന്നുമൊക്കെ വിട്ട ആൾക്കാർക്ക് പൊറോട്ടയും ബീഫും ഈ സനൽ സാറ് അദ്ദേഹത്തിൻ്റെ ക്യാൻറ്റീനിൽ നിന്ന് കൊണ്ടുവന്നപ്പം എനിക്ക് തോന്നുന്നു സ്വർഗം കിട്ടിയ നിമിഷങ്ങളായിട്ടാണ് ഞങ്ങൾ യൂണിറ്റിനൊക്കെ തോന്നിയിട്ടുള്ളത്. കാരണം ആഹാരത്തിൻ്റെ പലപ്പോഴും പ്രസക്തിയെക്കുറിച്ച് നമ്മൾ മനസ്സിലാക്കുന്നത് അത് നമുക്ക് ലഭിക്കാതെ ഇരിക്കുന്ന എല്ലാം അങ്ങനെയാണ്. ആഹാരം മാത്രമല്ല, എല്ലാ കാര്യങ്ങളും അങ്ങനെ തന്നെയാണ്. അപ്പോൾ ആഹാരത്തിൻ്റെ കാര്യത്തിന് പ്രശ്നമില്ല എന്ന് തോന്നിത്തുടങ്ങുമ്പോൾ പിന്നെ സാധാരണ ഒരാൾ, ആന്ധ്രയിലുള്ള എൻ്റെ സ്റ്റഡി ക്യാം ഓപ്പറേറ്റർ സുരേഷ് ഒരു ദിവസം പറഞ്ഞു, സാർ കിലോമീറ്റർ. അപ്പോഴാണ് ഞാൻ മനസ്സിലാക്കിയത് അങ്ങനെ ഓരോരുത്തരും അവരുടെ നാട്ടിലെത്തുവാനുള്ള അസ്വസ്ഥതയോടുകൂടി ഈ മനസ്സിൻ്റെ തകർച്ചയെക്കുറിച്ച് അങ്ങനെയാണ് ഞങ്ങൾ പലതരത്തിലുള്ള ആക്ടിവിറ്റീസിലൊക്കെ വന്നത്. അപ്പോൾ എല്ലാവർക്കും എങ്ങനെയെങ്കിലും നാട്ടിലെത്തിയാൽ മതി എന്ന് ആയിരുന്നപ്പോൾ ഞങ്ങൾ കുറച്ച് പേർക്ക് എങ്ങനെയെങ്കിലും ഈ സിനിമയൊന്ന് തീർക്കണം എന്നുള്ളതാണ്. കാരണം 35 കിലോ ഭാരം കുറച്ചിട്ട് ഒരു മനുഷ്യൻ നമ്മുടെ കൂടെ നിൽക്കുക. ഇത് ബ്രേക്ക് ചെയ്ത് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ വീണ്ടും ഇയാൾ ഈ പ്രോസസ്സിലേക്ക് പോകണം. ഭാരിച്ച പണം നഷ്ടമാകുകയാണ്. അപ്പം ഓരോരുത്തർക്കും രക്ഷ വളരെ വ്യത്യസ്തമാണെന്നുള്ള ഈ പ്രതിസന്ധികളിലൊക്കെ എങ്ങനെയാണ് ഞങ്ങളൊക്കെ വന്ന് ചേർന്നതെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ, ആടുജീവിതം എന്ന നോവൽ സിനിമയാക്കുവാനായിട്ട് ഞാൻ തീരുമാനിക്കുകയും തയ്യാറെടുക്കുകയും അങ്ങനെയാണ് ഈ ജോർദാനിലൊക്കെ ചെല്ലുന്നതും സനൽ സാറിനെയൊക്കെ പരിചയപ്പെടുന്നതുമൊക്കെ. അപ്പോൾ ഈ ആടുജീവിതം എന്ന നോവൽ ഉണ്ടാകുവാനായി മറ്റൊരു കാരണമുണ്ട്. കാരണം നമ്മൾ അനുഭവിച്ചതിനേക്കാളൊക്കെ ബെന്യാമിൻ ആ പുസ്തകത്തിൽ പറയുന്നുണ്ട്, കെട്ടുകഥകളാണെന്ന്. മറ്റൊരാളുടെ അനുഭവം നമുക്ക് പലപ്പോഴും കഥകളായി മാറാറുണ്ട്. അപ്പോൾ അങ്ങനെ ഒരു റിയൽ ലൈഫ് നാട്ടിൽ നിന്ന് ആറാട്ടുപുഴയിൽ നിന്ന് വിദേശത്തേക്ക് എത്തിയ ആറാട്ടുപുഴക്കാരനായ ഷുക്കൂർ ഇന്ന് എല്ലാവരും നജീബ് എന്ന് അറിയപ്പെടുന്ന, സാക്ഷാൽ ഈ ക്രൈസിസിലൊക്കെ ഞങ്ങൾ പെടുവാനായുള്ള കാരണക്കാരനായ ശ്രീ നജീബ് ഇവിടെയുണ്ട്. അദ്ദേഹത്തിനെ നിങ്ങളെ വളരെ സന്തോഷത്തോടുകൂടി പരിചയപ്പെടുത്തുവാൻ ആഗ്രഹിക്കുന്നു. ഈ നജീബില്ലായിരുന്നെങ്കിൽ ചിലപ്പോൾ ബെന്യാമിൻ ആടുജീവിതം എഴുതില്ലായിരിക്കും, മറ്റൊരു ജീവിതമായിരിക്കും എഴുതുക. അങ്ങനെയാണെങ്കിൽ ഞാൻ അങ്ങനെ ഒരു സിനിമയിലേക്ക് എത്തുകയില്ലായിരിക്കും.
ശ്രീ നജീബിനെ ആദരിക്കുന്നതിനായി വേദിയിലേക്ക് എ ബാലകൃഷ്ണൻ, പ്രസിഡന്റ് KMA, മിസ്റ്റർ ദിലീപ് നാരായണൻ, സെക്രട്ടറി KMA, ബിബു പൊന്നൂരാൻ, കൺവെൻഷൻ ചെയർ, സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്യുന്നു.
Making of Aadujivitham was a bigger story than real Aadujivitham. നജീബിന് തിരുവല്ലയിലുള്ള ഞങ്ങളുടെ ഒരു ഹോട്ടലിൽ ഒരു ജോലി ഞാൻ വാഗ്ദാനം ചെയ്യുവാണ്, ഉചിതമായൊരു ജോലി. നജീബിന് എന്തെങ്കിലും പറയാൻ കാണും, പറഞ്ഞു.
നമസ്കാരം, എൻ്റെ പേര് നജീബ്. എനിക്കിവിടെ വന്ന് ഈ പരിപാടിയിൽ പങ്കെടുക്കാൻ അവസരം തന്ന ഇതിൻ്റെ എല്ലാ ഭാരവാഹികൾക്കും എൻ്റെ ഹൃദയം നിറഞ്ഞ നന്ദിയും കടപ്പാടും ഞാൻ അറിയിച്ചു കൊള്ളുന്നു. ഇതൊരു കഥയല്ല, ഇത് ഞാൻ അനുഭവിച്ച ഒരു കാര്യമാണ് ഈ കഥയിലൂടെ അവതരിപ്പിച്ചിരിക്കുന്നത്. ഈ 750 ആടും 21 ഒട്ടകവുമായിട്ടാണ് ഞാൻ ജീവിച്ചത്. 2.5 വർഷം എൻ്റെ ഭാര്യയോ മക്കളില്ലായിരുന്നു അന്ന്. ഭാര്യയോ നാട്ടുകാരെയോ വീട്ടുകാരെയോ ആരും കാണാതെ ഒരു കത്ത് പോലും എനിക്ക് അയക്കാൻ പറ്റിയിട്ടില്ല. സൗദി അറേബ്യയിലെ ഒരു റിയാൽ പോലും കിട്ടാതെ 2.5 വർഷം പണി ചെയ്ത ഏക വ്യക്തി ഞാൻ മാത്രമായിരിക്കുമെന്ന്. പിന്നെ കൂടുതൽ എനിക്കൊന്നും പറയാൻ പറ്റുന്നില്ല. നന്ദി, നമസ്കാരം.
വളരെയധികം നന്ദി ശ്രീ നജീബ്. May I now invite Mr. Ramesh Nair, Managing Director, Aptive Connection Systems India Private Limited, to kindly come on to dais to give a memento to our renowned panelist. We are extremely thankful to the entire crew of Aadu Jeevitham. Special thanks to Blessy sir for sharing your experience and showing us what real crisis management is. Thank you so much to the entire panel. Let's hear it for the entire team of Aadu Jeevitham. A huge round of applause, please. Let's also hear it for the real life hero, Najib. Let's please give a huge round of applause. Thank you so much. We will now break for lunch. Request all the participants to kindly assemble back at 2:30 p.m.